You just took your spot, John.
Oh, this one? I just assumed you sat up there. You sure?
This is Mr. McGookie.
Hi, Tom Salmons, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Jack Felter.
Hi, good to meet
His real name is William, but he goes by Tom or Tommy. So if you
Okay.
see William in some of these papers,
That's the
still him.
official name. Okay, well, great.
Mine's just Jack.
yeah. Keep it simple.
Yeah, I'm a specialist. Just plain old Jack.
And all we did was add the three-person, well, I added the minutes from the last meeting. And then the
So
three-person
do you have any,
action
big
forms,
figure,
which
like,
show the dates.
You know what you're supposed to have today on points.
And this
Nine
will,
That's what's supposed to be saying on it.
Yeah.
So you can have one, I've got one for everybody if you like.
Great.
Good.
22 and 29.
Good, how you doing? Okay, good.
I forgot to ask you this morning. Do you have copies for these guys?
I do.
For you? Man, yeah, you're on the ball, man.
Hi.
Hello.
So what we did was we put together a packet for everybody. And it was basically, you got what I had sent out
Yep.
initially, which was your stuff, plus the three personal action forms, which is what Connie went by for the dates.
Okay.
So it's basically everything that you've already received, plus minutes and an agenda.
Okay.
So
Great.
you're more than welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So that,
Thank you.
Deb, what is your role going to be in human resources now?
my goal.
Your role, what is
Oh, my
your
role.
Hey, you're cold.
What are your goals?
I already got the job. You guys can't interview me.
Well, it's everything or the Victoria that
Okay.
we passed. I know it's gonna be, onboarding new hires with, benefits, selections, and stuff like that. Currently interviewing with Connie. There's so many positions available right now. So I was at the fire station for 7 interviews.
Okay.
Union members. And then I'm sure it's just gonna be keeping track of everything.
Okay.
And I think that this is gonna be a big part of it, though, so I should say.
Okay.
All right.
So you'll be dealing with us a lot.
I think so.
All right.
I think that's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I say it is.
Well, and yeah, I hear that negotiations are coming up for all three contracts.
So will you be involved in those also?
And I'm sure I'll be sitting in, now whether I'm able to offer anything, I don't know.
Okay, gotcha.
So, I think this year will probably be the learning experience and then in the coming years.
Yep. All right, perfect.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi there.
Good.
Oh, what you got there?
My official.
Hi, Mr. Rhodes. Good. So the only thing that I did add to the packet that was emailed
That's what I figured.
was
It's all right.
a top
That's what-
agenda just for something to
It is what it is.
flow
That's
the
what it
meeting. And minutes if we want, but since this is a hearing,
So,
so
I'm not really sure how this is going
that was,
to go.
Hello, guys.
if we don't have to.
Hello.
How is everybody? Thank you for coming and doing this. After we told you guys that you'd have the summer off.
Well, we're learning not to go by your promises.
Did you say so, did you want me for something? What'd you say?
So I'm not sure if like,
No, we're waiting for John May.
sure they run their own meetings. They tell us what. John.
Oh, okay, for the grievance.
Well, I have Brendan's phone number
That's Shelley said.
and
Promise me you don't get arrested.
I did have Brendan's phone number somewhere.
See what's up. I don't plan on it. I know.
It's not that you're small.
I think she's just worried because after I leave here, we're gonna wanna pick up a new TV. I think that's all.
Oh,
she's worried
jeez.
about.
She's not worried about me.
That is 366, I don't know, I wrote it down somewhere, maybe it's in this packet.
Is what?
His 366 number,
Brennan's?
his city cell. I think this one is his, let me see.
You know, Tommy, they're hooked on this
This one I
separation
have
stuff,
is
these three.
from, no.
Like 46.6.
366?
Erases separations.
In addition to that,
64586.
4586.
So the mics are not live yet, but the stream is on YouTube right now, so once we get recording and the mics are live, this will be streaming, okay? I'll give everybody a
Didn't
warning.
realize she was a public meeting like that, huh? Yeah, civil service, public. Gotta keep the F-bombs down.
Yeah. When I schedule it,
Yeah. Has anybody got a beeper?
do you guys know if you, our law director, Brendan Hale, said that he would be, he's traveling right now to Columbus. And he said that he would be available by cell, like he could talk to us while he's driving. I just don't know if you want me to put him on right away for the whole meeting, or if you just want his number so you could call in and ask questions.
You don't expect to have any input on any of the discussion other than just to answer questions? I mean, what do you want to be?
I mean, I would think that he would respond to questions. I don't think that he has anything more to say than what we will all give you in this room.
Okay.
But that's up to you, if you want him to hear the whole thing or not.
Well,
I was only thinking, because he's driving and you.
yeah.
Chief, we're not supposed to be on cell phone. But why is that? Because I can have mine right in the radio in the car and just keep driving. It's
You
no
could.
big deal, right?
You're not messing with it with your hands.
Should I get nervous? That John May isn't here? Should we call him?
on, go on her number, please.
Yeah,
Did you have his number?
yeah.
Can't bend my arms. Okay, did you build this one over or something? This one?
Why don't we get the law director on, just in case, and then
Yeah, I'll do it.
if he wants to say something, he can. If not, he can just listen.
No, like once I read it.
And then we won't have to wait for him to get on.
Hey, Colonel, are you coming to the civil service meeting?
All the heartaches and the labor.
Okay.
Getting angry at my kids and my wife.
3:30?
We'll wait.
Okay.
Don't give up on us, we'll wait.
He'll be here.
Did he forget?
Time is at 3 o'clock,
Yeah.
3:30.
It's 3 o'clock, so.
So he wants us to put the law, Brendan online.
Okay.
I don't know that there's any other way other than calling from a phone, right?
I don't-
Like, there's nothing here
No.
that
no,
allows him to come in.
No. Unless we did a Teams meeting or something like that, but then he would have to
We'd
still
have to
do
see,
something from
and
his
we don't
phone
want
and all
that.
that.
Does John live close by, or is he right down at the?
It sounded like he was close by.
Are you guys all working today?
Those that I'm off.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on down here earlier today, right?
We had a guy pass out on the roof. He's working on the roof, so we had to get the ladder truck down there, get him off the.
We bring it down the truck.
Yeah.
But at least no one fell, so, when you pass out.
Yeah.
I kept thinking it was like, that, where they're working down there on that, and
Yeah, it
I
was just
don't know,
right,
I
it
go-
was right across the street of that.
I go
website.
by there every morning when I come into work, and I always look way up and think, oh, man. I'm not
Yeah, those
thinking
guys
that's a
walk on
good
it, it's
place
just
to
like a
be
normal
working.
walk for them.
There he is.
Okay, I'll get Brendan then.
Hello. I've got a packet right up here for you, because I see you in right there.
It's the same thing you emailed to us, right?
It is, the first 3 pages are just the agenda and minutes.
Okay.
Hi, Brendan, I have you on speaker, and I'm just gonna leave you sit right here on the counter so that everybody can know that you're on the phone, and we're gonna just start our meeting, okay? Is that all right with you?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, I don't have the mics live yet, I'm gonna turn them on, and I'll let you start the meeting. Forward. And we should be live.
All right, good afternoon. We are going to open up our Civil Service Commission meeting today. It is Wednesday, July 21st, and it's about 3:35 p.m. First thing on the agenda is the approval of our Civil Service meeting minutes for July 1st, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as recorded.
No, second.
It's been motion and second that we approve the minutes. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposes? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is a hearing regarding seniority points from the fire department. So we will head into that.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'll kick off the hearing and just kind of give you some background and some information. To my left, going down, Jack Felter is a representative from the IAFF. Tom Sammons is the appellant and the one that's requested the hearing. James Snyder is the president from the IAFF, and, interim chief Jim Green. So what took place is that the last meeting you approved the lieutenant's list, and after that list was certified, Firefighter Sammons had, and through the union, had brought to our attention that his seniority points were, in their opinions, different than what has been done in the past for Firefighter Sammons, and there was an issue that has arose during his employment. So back in May of 2008, he was hired as a firefighter. During a budget issue, he was laid off in 2010, and then he was brought back about 75 days later. So he had a break-in. So essentially he was terminated, but he was brought back as part of the layoff process. And during that process, he lost like 75 days of seniority. So in interpreting the civil service rules that come into effect, Connie had used the 8.03, I believe it is, which states that in promotional examinations, additional credit for uninterrupted seniority within the department shall be added to the examination grade. So she used effectively the date of April 10th of 2010 because that's when he was hired back by the city. and would have started his employment back with the city. Firefighter Sammons has laid out a lot of documentation. This went back all the way to 2013. It was all in the documents that were emailed to you and that you have before you. But essentially what happened was there was a question as to his ability to take the civil service test for promotion back in 2013. And they determined that he couldn't because of the layoff status, and then he didn't have enough time for the 4 years of accumulated time back then. But there was a document that was signed by the city at the time that credited him to the August 1st, 2018 date as his seniority, and a lot of that was based on departmental seniority for Kelly days and vacation days and those type of situations. Never factored in the layoff situation as far as we can tell. But so there's some personnel action forms that put this into context of when he was hired, when he was laid off, when he was rehired. Firefighter Sammons has tested 3 times with the fire department for the lieutenant promotional test since he was eligible to take tests, and the city has used the August 2008 date and not the 2010 date that we used for this particular situation. And so we had a conversation, and we felt that it's best that this body, because it's one of your rules, and the law director can confirm this, that it's within your scope and within your boundaries to modify that if you think that it's inaccurate. We got hung up on the word uninterrupted, which we interpreted as the city had interpreted this time. And there's been different clerks that have been through this process, and we don't have the luxury of having any history behind it. But so as far as he has been tested 3 times, and the city has used the August 1st, 2008 date for all of those. There's a lot of ramifications for us arbitrarily changing it, so we didn't want to arbitrarily change what's in your rules. We feel that the uninterrupted means uninterrupted, but there could be some interpretation of that. So we're not opposed to using the August 1st, 2008 date as has been used in the past and has been used for firefighter Sammons. It was unfortunate, quite frankly, that him and several other firefighters and police officers and other city workers were laid off in a financial situation that was out of their control, and don't believe that he nor anyone else should be penalized for that. Unfortunately, the contract doesn't specify the layoff, and the civil service rules don't spell it out either. So we wanted to get your blessing or denial so that we didn't arbitrarily change something that is in your rules. And so that's kind of the foundation of the city's position. We're not opposed to doing it, but we didn't want to do it without your blessing, since it got brought to our attention by firefighter Sammons. And at that, I don't have anything to add. I can answer questions, or we can, however you want to proceed, Chairman.
Can I add something? I wanted to explain that the August 2008 date, how they use that. He was hired in May 15th of 2008 and laid off on 2/12/2010. So, and then reinstated on 4/29/2010. So that's a break of 75 days. So what we would normally do at the city for purposes of vacation and seniority and different things like that is we added that 75 days back to like on the tail end of the 5/15/20 or 2008 date. And that's how we arrived at an August date now as his new date as for vacation. Like he would be entitled to so many years of vacation based on his years of service, but since he had that break. When I did the calculation for this particular promotional, I used only the reinstatement date and not that August date. And that's how we got to all these different dates. I just kind of wanted to make it so that you understand what the August date is. And that today, what we're asking you to do, and they'll probably want to say something, I'm sure, but in this, we're not asking you to like make a new rule or anything like that in this civil service book. We're just trying to, just for this particular instant with Mr. Salmons, determine what would be the best thing if we recalculated it with the August date or left it the way it is today. Does that make sense? Okay.
Could I ask a couple of questions? So, I mean, seniority comes into play in a number of different issues. For most of those issues, in essence, Mr. Salmons would get credit for the time prior to his layoff, because he
It would be
wouldn't.
the August date.
Right,
Yeah.
you'd use the August date. So in essence, he's getting credit back to his start date, but we're just not, we're excluding the 75 days he was
Right
laid
in
off.
between. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, so, so he did, and during the period he was laid off, I mean, he still maintained his rights, basically, he got a recall right and that sort of thing. So his seniority really never terminated during that period of time. I mean, his rights under the seniority system never really were interrupted, were they?
No, he had, the union and the city had a memorandum of understanding, a 3-year agreement for recall rights at the time of these guys' layoffs.
Right.
So I don't know about that. I know that we did what the recall would have been in the civil service
Right.
rules.
Right.
Now, we do have to actually have that separation when he was laid off. That's why we couldn't do anything for the 75 days.
Right.
So
No.
he was gone, he was separated
Right,
from
right.
the city.
Right, so during the 75 days, no new seniority was accrued to him.
No.
Right. But he still had the seniority that he had before. I mean, he carried it through to his reinstatement.
I mean, I would say yes
That's
to that.
accurate, yes.
Yes.
So I mean, in a way, you could say that his seniority rights, the ones he had prior, were not interrupted. They were, he just didn't accrue new rights.
Yeah, I would say yes.
I would say that's,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Would you all like to have something to say?
Absolutely, we would. So what I was liking to do is have Firefighter Salmons present his stuff that he would like to say to you, and then when he's done, I would like to say a couple words with some papers I'll hand out to you guys, and then we can go from there.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing this meeting to transpire this afternoon. Basically, everything that Mr. Warzek stated there is correct. Basically, the precedence has been set that we would always go off of that August date because of the MOU that turned into contract language, which was 46.6 regarding return from layoff, you maintain the seniority that you had. So it comes out to be about 1.8 years. So that's all that I'm looking to rectify, is that 1.8 years doesn't just disappear due to a layoff. I also had the letter here that was received from the city, from a judgment made by Mr. Fischel stating that I was short those 75 days to take the promotional test in 2013. So the interpretation from that letter was I still had credit from 2008 till the layoff in 2010. So that's the summary of the basis of where this all stems from. Is I feel that the time prior to layoff still should count for seniority purposes, just less those 75 days. All right, James.
Well, that was fast.
John covered a lot of it.
Oh, okay. So, some of these documents you may already have, but I just have these so I can follow right along here.
Great, thank you.
All right, so actually layoff is covered in our contract with the recall rights, and then thank God, when the layoff stuff was going down, the city with Chief Ritchie at the time and our union officials at the time got together and created a memorandum of understanding that later on became Article 46.6. So basically 46.6 wipes out that terminology uninterrupted. So I'll get that towards the end here. So in your civil service rules, 1.01 on the very first page, basically that states that if we have something in our contract that supersedes civil service rules. So we have Article 46.6 that basically wipes out the uninterrupted stuff. In our opinion, that's what we believe it is. Let's see, we go to the next page, 8.03, the word uninterrupted seniority. Again, we feel that 46.6 wipes that out, and I'll explain that. On the next page, 18.2, so department seniority shall be used in determining the following. So it goes, the city told us that because it says Kelly Day picks, vacation picks, Thanksgiving, stuff like that is in there. They said that nowhere in here does it say civil service points. But, I mean, for seniority, but what is seniority? Seniority points, that's what we're talking about. So I'll flip to the next page and you go back to like 3/4 of the way down the list, there's firefighter Solomon's name, and the city is using 7/30 of 08 as his seniority. So they're acknowledging that he has seniority all the way back to then. So 18.1 on the previous page, departmental seniority shall be determined by continuous service in the Sandusky Fire Department, calculated from the date of employment. Continuous service shall be broken only by resignation, discharge, or retirement. So if we go back to the very last page that I provided you guys, Article 46.6 of our contract, it reads, and Tommy had stated this earlier, and it started off as an MOU when these guys got laid off. And then for 2 contracts in a row, the MOU was still placed in the contracts. Then in the third contract, it became contract language. But as an MOU in the contract, we still follow that as a article.
And that MOU is in the packet that Tommy gave you guys. I think you guys emailed it to him.
Right. So Article 46.6, bargaining unit employees who were laid off and later reinstated under this article shall retain the seniority they had at the time of layoff, but shall not be given credit for the time spent on layoff status. So that's the question, Mr. Rose, that you had asked, his date, then minus the 75 days. So you're 100% right. So Tommy was hired 08, he got laid off in 10, he was laid off for 75 days, so they backed this stuff up. So now he has August 1st, 2008 until present, uninterrupted service, uninterrupted seniority time. That's why we feel so adamant that our contract language prevails over all this. And let me just check my notes here. I think that's all I have. Anything more to add? Yeah.
No.
Tommy, we did file a grievance, so we're now in step 3. It went to his shift commander. He's unable to resolve it, but so this is in the grievance process also. But we're very confident today that you guys would be able to rule in Tommy's favor, that the good majority of the grievance will go away, other than a pay issue.
Can I say something else now? A couple of things. I don't believe that the grievance process is the right avenue to take for this. I think that it has to be through civil service because the promotional and everything goes through civil service. So I don't think that that should come into play. I also don't think that this memorandum should come into play either, simply because it was signed, I don't know when it was signed, it's not dated, but if it's not included into a contract, once this ends and we don't put it back in the contract, then it doesn't carry over, am I right? It's not
Connie, I have
gonna-
3 contracts right here in a row.
But the
It's in all 3 of these
contract
contracts.
language at 46.6 does put some of that credit in there. So I don't know, it clouds it a little bit. I think that we go with civil service language, but they are correct that we used the August date in 2 prior promotions. 3, I'm sorry, well, in prior promotions for Tom Sawns. And so when it was calculated this time, I used the last date where he was reinstated and not that August one. So previously it was used that way.
What was your reinstatement date again?
April 29th, 2010.
And before August 1st, 2008 was used.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Help me understand the language of 46.6 for a minute. The last clause in this, where it says, "but shall not be given credit for the time spent on layoff status."
That would be referring to the 75 days that he was laid off.
So, yeah, in this particular case, just in general things, how would you adjust someone's seniority for those days that they were laid off? How would that take place?
So how the city has done it in the past is how they were trying to describe is they would push from the May date, I believe, when he was hired. They push that forward 75 days, which gives you the August 1st date. So that's 75 days from his original hire date. And
Okay,
then-
so his original hire, I mean, what's on this form that you just provided us at 7:30? Was that your original hire date?
My original hire date's May
May.
15th. Since this layoff, there's been a plethora of different dates assigned. They have a longevity date, a vacation date, and a hire date. So that document says July 30th, but on all these certified civil service promotional test lists, they used August 1st.
So is the delta between the May date that you consider your day hired and what's reported here, is that the 75 days? I'm not going to do the math in public, but that's,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's essentially what we're saying. You were actually hired in May of '08.
Correct.
But all the documentation reflects May minus 75 days to an August date. Is that accurate? Am I understanding this accurately?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
I have a few questions for Brandon whenever it's appropriate.
Okay, Brendan? Is he still? Okay. They have a couple questions for you now.
Okay.
Okay, I'll admit, I'm having a really hard time hearing people.
I'm going to put you close.
Yeah, I'll try and speak up.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can keep it close to the
In our packet was the Ohio Revised Code section, 12445, which is fire department promotions. And in that section, there's some language that says, credit for seniority shall be given as follows. And then 1 point for each of the first 4 years of service. And then so forth, percentages of points after that. So that language in the statute doesn't refer to uninterrupted service that I can see. Have you looked at it? Would you agree with that?
I have not looked at it before the meeting, so I don't know if there's a conflict between the language of the civil service rules and the ORC directly, or if civil service rules are clarifying the ORC. So I can't answer that question right this second.
Can I
Okay.
speak to that for
Yeah.
a second?
Sure.
Regardless of what date, if we use the August 1 date, or if we use the reinstatement, the final reinstatement date of April, I would have still calculated the points the same way, like 1 point for the first 4 years,
Right.
and then I think it's a 6, right? 0.6, 6/10 of a point for the next
Right.
10. So I still would have calculated it the same way.
But it would have been a little longer, right?
He would have gotten more
More
years,
points.
he would have gotten higher points
Right.
if he gets the,
Additional time,
right.
right.
And
So-
then that makes the move
Right.
on the,
But my point,
Yes.
or my question is that this refers to, it doesn't refer to uninterrupted. So, you know, if you go by the statute, it may eliminate the issue, you know, that's created by the word uninterrupted.
okay, so
I
Brendan?
do want to clarify something, if I can. That there's the issue at hand, which is, does the civil service believe, the Civil Service Commission agree that we should continue to basically follow past practice for this particular instance with this particular firefighter? That's all we're deciding today. We're not deciding categorically what the correct application of the rule is. That's a bigger question, and we can answer that later. But if the civil service would like us to provide a legal opinion as to whether or not there's a conflict between their rules and the statute and which one would govern, we can do that. But I don't think that's necessary today to decide the issue at hand, which is we have used the August date in the past. So there's precedent. And if the civil service believes that's a correct application for this firefighter this time, you may do so. If you think that the correct application is specifically to follow the uninterrupted services, I would say you may do so as well. And I think we can get an answer to you all later on the question of whether or not there's a conflict between the civil service rules and 120. I'm not going to try and do the ORC from memory,
Right,
but
right.
the correct ORC permission.
Right, okay. My concern there is that, you know, I don't know what our ability to adopt, even though it's been a past practice, a practice that's in violation of our rule. I mean, in my mind, and I don't know, then aren't we creating a situation where the other firefighter involved, you know, has a complaint, well, you've always done it wrong, so you're just gonna continue to do it wrong. You know, my preference would be to do it right and follow the rule, and frankly, I think we can do that. Do you have an opinion? Let's if you could assume for a second whether if there's a conflict between the state law and this body's rules, which would control?
Generally speaking, our charter states that the state law controls. However, there might be a little wrinkle with this, in that the collective bargaining agreement, I think specifically says for promotional credits, you follow the civil service rules.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And, yeah,
Okay, thanks.
sure.
So do you guys have any other questions on for me on how I did that?
I think we understand. I understand how you read that way.
The one thing I do want to say is when the individuals, all of them that were laid off and came back, together with our payroll clerk in the finance department, we always did that calculation to give them credit citywide here for us, and I'm not talking about this, but for us, so that they had, you know, credit towards vacation and different things, so that they didn't lose that 75 days that he had that break in service. He didn't lose all those years towards his vacation and different things like that. And then I think what they were talking about, like their department seniority and stuff. So I just did what I did based on what I read on 8.03 with the uninterrupted. That's why I calculated it that way, but I totally understand why it was calculated the other way, because that is how we would do it for his employment here at the city.
I think at issue too was, the civil service rules have been in effect for quite a long time. The layoff situation was a phenomenon that nobody had dealt with before, and that's why the firefighters had to get a memorandum of understanding, and then now it's in their contract, police contract, and things like that. I think that we're going to have to do an analysis of the uninterrupted language, but I think it's clear based on their contract language and the intent of seniority for the department that he be credited for the time that he has served the citizens of Sandusky.
Anybody else want to add anything?
The only thing I'd like to add that did get brought up earlier is the Civil Service Commission rules that are on the city's website. When you go back, they're dated 2002, and this 8.03 was there also at that time. But when I took the test in 2015, 2017, and 2019, this never played a factor. But now in 2021, it appeared and is a factor. So it wasn't that it was a new rule, it's just something that wasn't applied before. Thank you.
I would like to add one thing. You had mentioned other firefighters on the list that may be affected. That's why Article 46.6 is so important. If it's ruled in favor because of that article, then the other firefighters there's no other issue with them, because we're following, that's exactly how the seniority is determined.
If you guys would like to take like a break and have us step out,
Do you?
we could definitely do that if you wanted to talk. It's just that when you come back, the vote needs to be made here. Yeah.
Public, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have some discussion time. Chief, if you would stay, please. Mr. Orzek, you would stay. Is that,
And then